A great sketch isn't just a guide. It's the moment your artwork starts to shine. Strong line work should inspire you just as much as the final colored piece. In this lesson, you'll discover how to make your line drawings captivating from the very first stroke. We'll cover tips for composition, proportion, and lively, expressive lines. This is the second episode of the Wooden Door with Floral Accents series. Subscribe so you can follow the whole process. All links to the brushes used in this video and to the reference image can be found in the description below. Let's begin by setting up the workspace for today's sketch. We'll be working on an A4 canvas at 300 dpi. To better mimic traditional marker techniques, it's important to soften the stark whiteness of the digital canvas, as it often looks too clean and unnatural. You can either use a paper textured canvas from the Marker Studio set, or create your own and manually add a paper texture. Here, the Smooth 02 brush from the Paper Creator set is used to create a subtle, gentle texture that gives a feeling of a real paper. We won't go into detail about paper texture brushes here, as there's a separate video about the Paper Creator set on the channel. For the line work, you can use any sketching brushes you're comfortable with. It's important for the brush to be pressure sensitive, as this helps keep the strokes light and expressive. If you have my Catchy Sketches brush set, almost any of the brushes will work well here when set to a small size. In this lesson, we'll be using the round brush. Next, open the Reference tab and import the image. It's ready to go. When working on a digital canvas, the process differs from drawing on a real paper. On an A4 sheet, for example, you need to think about the composition right from the start. But here, this isn't necessary, as the reference window is open and covers part of the canvas. Let's outline the door in the empty space on the canvas first, then shift it later. The first step is to capture the door's proportions. No precise measurements are needed, just loosely sketch the proportions as they appear. As mentioned in the previous video, the dynamics of the strokes play a key role here. When creating a line drawing with these brushes, it's better to use quick, fluid strokes. The goal is to keep the lines lively and expressive, rather than enclosing everything in rigid outlines. Some lines remain broken, allowing light to pass through the form. Let's mark the key linear guides, the center of the door and the panel at the joint of the two sections. When it comes to architectural elements, QuickShape is a great tool to use. Now let's move on to the upper part, where the arch is located. When creating a complex curve, it's helpful to break it into smaller segments. This approach makes the shape more natural and manageable. Next, continue working on the door. As you can see, no measurements are involved. Everything is done by eye. Note that everything drawn inside the shape can be considered as a secondary contour. The primary contour is the one that defines the form, and the internal details refine it. When working with these refining lines, it's better to reduce the pressure to maintain the priorities in the drawing. This makes the line drawing more expressive and sets the stage for further work. Let's move on to the decorative sections of the door. Here's a small trick. Create a new layer in order to duplicate the section on the second half of the door later. First, draw the general panel for the entire section. Again, you can use QuickShape. Sometimes the QuickShape tool behaves unpredictably and takes a bit of adjusting before you get the line right. Mark the line where the lower rectangle ends. If anything needs correction, use the eraser tool. check the proportions of this detail. Position these rectangles inside the larger form. If the three rectangles turn out different in size, correct them by moving the internal lines. To avoid mess in the line drawing, remove any unnecessary lines right away using the eraser. Now, duplicate the layer and move the detail to the other half of the door. At this point, it becomes clear that the left and right sides of the door are slightly different in size. To fix this, just add or remove a little where needed. Try not to use duplication and QuickShape too much, but in some cases it can be useful and can speed up the process. If needed, erase any unnecessary lines. Now form the doorway area, the plane that creates depth. The right side is not visible on the reference, but it can still be shown in the drawing, as framing elements always enhance doors and windows. Draw the complex shape of the arch in small segments again. Here you can notice a perspective reduction. In this lesson, there is no need to find a vanishing point or build a strict linear perspective. Simply follow the diagonal seen in the reference and repeat that angle in the drawing. Now focus on the decorative elements and finishing touches on the door. It's better not to rely on QuickShape here, as it's important to convey the line's character by drawing them by hand. This line drawing will not be erased or altered. It will remain a part of the overall composition. So make it lively by adding small thickening, dots, and notches. Add the accent dots at the intersections of the lines. If there was a need to hurry, it would be possible to simply mirror the half onto the right side. But there is no rush. Work is done step by step with a focus on the process itself. This is a very meditative activity, drawing textures, marker lines, staying connected to the drawing. It's a pleasant process. By the way, this doorway frame element may have been made slightly wider than necessary. It only becomes noticeable at this stage, but it doesn't disrupt the overall style or balance of the image. In fact, such small deviations often add to the charm of a hand-drawn illustration, giving it personality and keeping it from feeling too mechanical. That's what gives a hand sketch its character, unlike a drawing traced over a photo. Here we need to make the elements at the base slightly wider, then move on to drawing the step. Horizontal planes are often the hardest to draw straight by hand, so it's okay to use QuickShape here. That's it, the door is done. Now let's move on to the surroundings. Here the lines are intentionally made more lively, slightly less even, but not too much. Next, let's work on the step. Visually align these diagonals so they look harmonious with the already drawn diagonals at the bottom of the door. The step itself turned out a bit uneven, and that's great. On the reference, the lines are not perfectly straight, they are slightly curved. While drawing, keep comparing the proportions of the objects to the reference. If you need to adjust the proportions of any detail, you can use the selection tool, Select the Freeform tab and transform the shape. The step may differ slightly from the reference, not because we are making excuses, but because we are freely moving within the process. Sometimes, after working on one section for a long time and feeling tired, it's helpful to switch tasks, then come back and refine the details, add notches, dots, and clarify the shapes. Now, let's move on to the finer details. Determine the proportions of the left pot by comparing it to an already drawn element. In terms of width, it's roughly equal to half of the door. A vanishing point could be helpful here. In short, the perspective is built on lines arranged in a fan-like shape. The further the object is from the door, the more pronounced its angle becomes. Keep this in mind to properly fit the pot into the space. Work mainly on its silhouette and main proportions, then softly suggest the internal space. We'll also leave the foliage without detailing. Any thin elements are easier to sketch later using marker brushes. Now, let's try to determine the height of the window. It's about here. It's not a key element in the composition, so don't spend much time on it. Lightly sketch the grill lines if you wish, but it's often easier to add such details later as the finishing touches of the coloring stage. Pipes and other overlooked elements might not seem important, but they help define the atmosphere and catch the eye. In an urban environment, these nuances give the place character, so be sure to sketch them. Additionally, adding notches make them more visually engaging. There is also one small detail, the rug. It also helps convey the perspective reduction, so lightly sketch it as well. Now, let's move on to the second pot. When looking at this pot, it seems to contradict the perspective a bit. Perhaps this is because the pot itself is trapezoidal in shape. To simplify the task, sometimes it's fine to go off the reference, so the right pot will be drawn the same as the left one. Next, we need to add elements of the wall. It's important to maintain proportion here, so we don't, for example, make this detail too large. And we have a mailbox here. By the way, such elements like mailboxes are always a charming detail that adds coziness, so they are important for us. Even in the smallest scenes, try to find interesting details and include them already at the line drawing stage. We've agreed not to consider foliage for now, but the pots in which it will be placed are still drawn, at least the ones visible through the foliage. Of course, there could be small inaccuracies here, as some parts are hidden from view. But in reality, if we were drawing on location, we wouldn't focus on such nuances. We simply transfer to paper what the eye manages to notice. The window is approximately at the level of this part of the door. It's generally easier to draw secondary elements once the main reference point is established. The window is positioned at the same height at the top edge of the door. It's always helpful to place each new element in relation to the objects that have already been drawn. The window frame is quite large. Mark its depth and the frame sections. There is a slight perspective shift here. One section is wide, the other narrower. All these lines are light and secondary. Don't forget about small details, like this little pot on the window. As mentioned, no need to draw the grill now. It will be easier to add it at the coloring stage. Now, let's take a look at the overall composition. Here, there is one more pot. It's slightly trapezoidal. And nearby, there's a pipe. It's better to draw these thin elements with QuickShape to get perfectly straight guides. Add small dots or short strokes along the pipe as well. In general, the line drawing is complete. Let's hide the reference. Now we can move on to the positioning of the drawing on the canvas. The key is not to forget to switch to uniform mode so that the proportions remain consistent during transformation. That's it! Your lively, expressive line drawing is now complete and ready for the next stage. Do you enjoy the line stage more, or do you prefer working with color? Write in the comments. And if you had any questions along the way, feel free to leave them there too. In the next episode, we'll bring this sketch to life with bold, abstract color fills that will set the tone for the entire illustration. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss it. See you in the next video.